President-elect Donald Trump has made it clear that he intends to take a strong approach to trade policies, particularly focusing on major economic powers such as China and the BRICS nations: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. His administration plans to implement strict tariffs on countries globally, with a particular focus on increasing tariffs against China. Additionally, Trump has issued a serious warning. If BRICS countries decide to move away from using the US dollar in their international transactions, they could face a staggering 100% tariff as a consequence. In light of these significant threats, BRICS nations are proactively taking steps to lessen their dependence on the dollar, notably by making considerable investments in gold reserves. China replaced dollar with gold. China's central bank has ramped up its gold reserves for the second month in a row as of December, signaling a renewed commitment to gold accumulation after a pause last year due to soaring prices. The People's Bank of China reported an increase in its bullion holdings to 73.2 million fine troy ounces in December, up from 72.96 million the month prior, according to data released on Tuesday. This move follows a 6-month hiatus in gold purchases, which resumed in November. The PBOC's actions reflect a strong desire to diversify its reserves, even amidst historically high gold prices. The surge in gold values, reaching record levels in 2024, has been driven by U.S. monetary easing, heightened safe haven demand, and ongoing acquisitions by central banks worldwide. BRICS countries moved to gold. Numerous nations in the global south, not just China, are shifting away from the dollar and turning to gold as a preferred investment. This trend is being embraced by several countries, particularly those within the BRICS alliance. Brazil's gold strategy. Brazil's central bank has been actively boosting its gold reserves in recent years as part of a strategic initiative to bolster financial stability and diversify its foreign exchange holdings. In 2023, the Central Bank of Brazil, known as Banco Central do Brasil, made a notable acquisition of around 100 metric tons of gold, a significant increase from the 80 metric tons it purchased annually from 2018 to 2022. This rise in gold purchases underscores Brazil's proactive stance in protecting its economy from external shocks and currency fluctuations. Historically dependent on the US dollar, Brazil is now taking steps to reduce the risks tied to dollar reliance by increasing its gold reserves. This strategic shift is in line with broader economic policies designed to enhance national financial sovereignty and minimize vulnerability to potential shifts in global currency markets. Indonesia Gold Strategy. As the latest addition to the BRICS alliance, Indonesia is taking bold steps to enhance its gold reserves, aligning with the collective objectives of the bloc for 2024. In a significant move, Bank Indonesia, the nation's central bank, has acquired around 80 metric tons of gold, a notable increase from the previous annual average of 50 metric tons between 2018 and 2023. This surge in gold purchases underscores Indonesia's commitment to financial diversification and economic resilience. The leap from 50 to 80 metric tons signifies a remarkable 60% increase in annual acquisitions, driven by strategic internal economic policies and the country's integration into the BRICS framework. Russia Gold Strategy. In 2023, Russia has positioned itself as a leading buyer of gold among the BRICS nations, with the Central Bank of Russia acquiring approximately 300 metric tons of gold, effectively doubling its annual purchase rate compared to previous years. From 2018 to 2022, Russia typically bought around 150 metric tons of gold each year. This significant surge in 2023 is a direct reaction to escalating geopolitical tensions and the economic sanctions imposed by Western countries. These sanctions have restricted Russia's access to conventional financial systems, prompting the nation to strengthen its gold reserves as a protective measure. Russia's aggressive gold accumulation is motivated by several strategic goals. Gold is a globally recognized asset that cannot be easily frozen or restricted by foreign governments, making it a dependable store of value during times of sanctions. By increasing its gold reserves, Russia seeks to stabilize the ruble and lessen its reliance on the US dollar for international trade. Furthermore, substantial gold holdings enhance Russia's financial influence, enabling it to participate more assertively in global negotiations and economic partnerships without being overly dependent on Western financial systems. India's Gold Strategy. India is making remarkable strides in global gold accumulation in 2023. The Reserve Bank of India has boosted its gold reserves by around 200 metric tons, a significant increase from the average of 2023 150 metric tons per year recorded between 2018 and 2022. This consistent growth in gold reserves not only highlights India's deep-rooted cultural connection to gold, but also underscores its strategic economic initiatives. While gold has long been regarded as a symbol of wealth and prosperity in India, the RBI's recent purchases signify a pivotal shift towards recognizing gold as a vital financial asset to strengthen national reserves. France. China continues gold purchase. In 2023, China continues to be a dominant player in global gold acquisitions. The People's Bank of China has increased its gold reserves by around 250 metric tons, a notable rise from the annual addition of 200 metric tons observed between 2018 and 2022. This ongoing expansion of gold reserves highlights China's strategic intent to diversify its foreign exchange holdings and diminish its dependence on the US dollar. This approach aligns with China's wider economic objectives, which encompass the internationalization of the yuan and the development of alternative financial systems within the BRICS framework. South Africa Gold Strategy. The South African Reserve Bank, or SARB, added roughly 50 metric tons of gold in 2023, which was in line with its yearly average of 45 met tons between 2018 and 2022. Historically, South Africa, one of the world's largest producers of gold, has maintained a steady trajectory in its gold reserve purchases. The nation has encountered difficulties with regard to economic policies and domestic mining output. A cautious but steady increase in reserves has resulted from the SARB's purchasing decisions being influenced by changes in domestic economic conditions and global gold prices. U.S. dollar history. Due to significant historical events following World War II, the 1944 Bretton Woods Agreement established a new international monetary framework that tied major currencies to the USD, which was convertible into gold at a predetermined rate. As a result, the USD has maintained its position as the primary global reserve currency for many decades. This arrangement solidified the dollar's crucial position in global finance, and even after the Bretton Woods system collapsed in the early 1970s, the dollar remained dominant thanks to the strong and stable U.S. economy. The term exorbitant privilege, coined by former French finance minister Valéry Giscard in the 1960s, highlights the significant economic benefits that the United States has received from supremacy, such as reduced borrowing costs and the ability to sustain trade deficits without suffering immediate economic repercussions. Dollar weaponization. This strategy, sometimes referred to as the weaponization of the dollar, involved using the dollar's pivotal role in global finance to impose economic sanctions and exert geopolitical pressure. The U.S. government's control over international financial systems, such as the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication or SWIFT, allowed it to monitor and restrict financial transactions involving particular nations or entities. The United States increased its use of financial instruments as tools of national security policy following the September 11th attacks. De-dollarization moved China and Russia have been leading the trend of dollarization, aiming to reduce their reliance on the U.S. dollar. China has globalized its currency by encouraging international trade and forming currency swap agreements. Russia, facing economic sanctions, has boosted its gold reserves and aimed to conduct trade using alternative currencies. China has strategically grown its gold reserves, with the People's Bank of China increasing its gold reserves for the sixth straight month in April 2023. This analysis examines China's strategic increase in gold reserves and its effects on the U.S. economy and the global financial system, particularly how it limits the Trump administration's ability to counter China's growth and effectively restrain its economic and geopolitical progress. China's transition to gold has long been regarded as a store of value and a hedge against economic instability. But in the face of shifting global economic conditions and geopolitical uncertainties, its strategic accumulation in recent years represents a significant change in China's approach to national reserves and global economic strategy. This study provides a thorough examination of China's large gold purchases, looking into the driving forces behind them, as well as any broader ramifications for international relations and global markets. Let us pause for a moment. We would like to ask you a small favor if you have liked the video thus far. Thank you for watching, and let us get back to business. Pressing the like button expands our audience, and leaving comments with your ideas or comments has an even greater effect. Overview of China's gold purchase. In the modern era, particularly since the early 2000s, gold has assumed a more strategic role in China's foreign reserves from 2018 to 2023. China's involvement with gold is deeply rooted in both cultural and economic traditions that have evolved significantly alongside its rapid economic expansion and integration into the global economy. Traditionally, gold in China represented wealth status and prosperity, primarily used in jewelry and cultural items. Starting at about 250 metric tons in 2018, China's annual gold purchases showed a clear upward trend, indicating a purposeful and aggressive accumulation approach. By 2023, purchases had increased to an estimated 550 metric tons, driven by favorable gold prices, economic stability, and heightened geopolitical tensions, particularly with the United States. By December 2024, China's official gold reserves had increased to about 2,264 metric tons, making it one of the world's largest gold holders. Motivations behind China's gold accumulation. China is increasing its gold reserves for a variety of reasons, including geopolitical, strategic, and economic ones. One important consideration is the diversification of foreign reserves. About 60% of China's holdings are in the US dollar, which has historically represented a large portion of its reserves. Gold serves as a hedge against inflation and currency devaluation, preserving the purchasing power of reserves during uncertain economic times. By diversifying into gold, one can lower risks associated with currency fluctuations and potential devaluations, improving the stability and resilience of China's reserve portfolio. Why moving away from the dollar? China is reducing its reliance on the US dollar in international trade to counter escalating geopolitical hostilities. This strategy not only undermines the US's hegemonic role in international finance, but also gives China more economic autonomy and shields its reserves from financial constraints or sanctions. Large gold reserves symbolize economic strength and stability, reinforcing China's global image as a financially powerful nation. Gold holdings asserts China's economic sovereignty by participating in international negotiations and fortifying its position within international financial institutions. Strategically accumulating gold supports China's long-term economic goals and initiatives like the Belt and Road Initiative. Limitation of Trump's administration. Using the US dollar's dominance in international finance to impose sanctions was one of the Trump administration's primary tactics to counter adversaries. These sanctions included freezing foreign-held dollar reserves and restricting access to dollar-based international trade systems. Impact on Trump's strategy. China successfully protected itself from the full effects of dollar-based sanctions by shifting away from dollar reserves and trading in alternative currencies like gold or the yuan. Unlike dollar assets, gold reserves cannot be frozen or controlled by the US government, making it much more difficult for Trump to economically isolate China or punish its businesses. Weakening the leverage of the trade war. The Trump administration's trade war focused on imposing tariffs and renegotiating terms, heavily relying on the dollar's role in global commerce. The tariffs aim to pressure China by making exports more costly, benefiting US producers, and increasing Beijing's economic vulnerability. China encouraged trade settlements in yuan and amassed gold as a reserve, reducing its exposure to the global dollar system. This weakened Trump's ability to apply economic pressure through dollar-related tools, but China showed resilience through reserve diversification, reduced reliance on US Treasury bonds, and less susceptibility to dollar volatility. Bolstering China's international alliances. China's gold holdings and reduced reliance on the US dollar. With its overarching goal of forming alliances with nations demoralized by US financial domination programs like the Belt and Road Initiative, BR, Ali provided a substitute economic framework that depended on focus more on gold-backed trade agreements or on settlements and less on the dollar. Trump's policy through America. First policies, the Trump administration sought to undermine multilateral frameworks and give priority to US dominance. This strategy was thwarted by China's dollarization strategy and use of gold to promote investment and trade. For instance, nations leery of dollar sanctions found it more alluring to align with China's economic vision. Beijing offered concrete alternatives to Trump's attempts to isolate China, especially by discouraging allies from participating in Chinese-led initiatives. By using gold and local currencies, nations were able to get around us. The administration's ability to employ economic isolation as a strategic tool is restricted by financial systems. Reducing the effectiveness of weaponized dollar diplomacy. Using the dollar's centrality to block access to international financial networks like SWIFT, the U.S. increased its use of weaponized dollar diplomacy under Trump. This strategy was a crucial part of efforts to curb China's technological advancement, specifically targeting sectors like semiconductor production and companies like Huawei by diversifying reserves and transacting through non-dollar systems. The danger of dollar weaponization was lessened by Beijing. During times of crisis or sanctions, Beijing could rely on gold in particular as an untouchable asset to support its economy. Trump's attempts to interfere with China's financial networks and technological objectives were less successful as a result. Factors influencing gold purchase. Numerous internal and external elements motivate China has decided to increase its gold reserves in order to boost economic growth and the foreign exchange that results. Surplus provides the funds needed to make large gold purchases. A portion of China's significant foreign exchange reserves, which are produced by its steady trade surpluses, are invested in gold in order to diversify holdings and guarantee long-term financial stability. The robust economic performance increases China's ability to make investments in safe assets like gold that support its strategic goals for reserve diversification. Interest rates and monetary policy are also important factors. In an environment with low interest rates, gold becomes a more desirable investment than fixed income securities, which encourages more purchases. In order to improve stability and diversification, the People's Bank of China actively manages reserve allocations in favor of gold. In addition, geopolitical tensions, particularly trade disputes and the possibility of economic sanctions, push China to safeguard its reserves with physical assets like gold, guaranteeing financial security in the face of uncertainty. Gold price dynamics of the global market, including China's purchasing strategies, are greatly impacted by trends in mining output and gold prices. The timing and amount of purchases are influenced by changes in gold prices, with strategic buying frequently taking place during price declines to maximize the methods and scope of China's gold accumulation were shaped by domestic policies and regulations, such as central bank mandates and the roles of state-owned enterprises in gold trading and mining, which ensured alignment with national economic plans and reserve diversification goals. Investments limited the global supply of gold, and rising investment demand could drive prices up, necessitating careful planning and reserve accumulation. Impact on global gold mining operations, gold prices, market liquidity, and currency dynamics are all impacted by China's large gold purchases. China's steady and substantial demand drives up global gold prices, particularly in uncertain economic times, which influences investment and speculative trading trends. Globally, large-scale purchases support a bullish outlook that promotes additional investment in gold and related assets by sustaining or rising gold prices. China's involvement in the gold market has increased liquidity, which improves. Though China's purchasing habits can also introduce volatility, as rapid increases in demand can result in price spikes and possible speculative trading activities, market depth makes gold more accessible and tradable for other investors and nations. This additional liquidity helps to maintain market stability by preventing speculative fluctuations and providing a dependable demand base. China's decreased higher gold reserves and reliance on the US dollar have an impact on global currency dynamics by encouraging currency diversification and the internationalization of the W. This change can have an impact on. Additionally, rising demand from China encourages global gold mining companies to grow and innovate, which could weaken the dollar's hegemony and lead to a more multipolar currency system. Because increased mining activities necessitate sustainable practices to mitigate ecological impacts, supply chains and mining economics have environmental and regulatory ramifications. Impact on U.S. economy. By diversifying its reserves away from U.S. Treasury securities and increasing gold holdings, China's large gold purchases have complex effects on the U.S. economy, especially with regard to the dollar's global standing. Although China's actions suggest a shift towards reserve diversification, the immediate impact on the U.S. economy is complex. The U.S. benefits from the dollar's reserve currency status, which allows for lower borrowing costs and the ability to run trade deficits. This strategy, known as dollarization, aims to reduce China's reliance on the dollar. It is partially motivated by geopolitical tensions and the desire to reduce exposure to potential U.S. sanctions. Given the dollar's established position in global finance, a gradual shift away from the dollar by major economies could eventually lead to higher borrowing costs and less economic flexibility for the U.S. Additionally, China's gold holdings contribute to rising global gold prices, which can affect investor and financial markets. Investment portfolios may move away from dollar-denominated assets as gold gains appeal, which could have an impact on the demand for U.S. securities. Implications for international economics and geopolitics. As China diversifies its reserves away from the US dollar, it could potentially reshape global financial systems and geopolitical alliances. China's strategic gold accumulation has important ramifications for global economics and geopolitics. Significant changes to the traditional structure of global reserve holdings challenge the dollar's hegemonic status and promote a more multipolar reserve system. This change can have an impact on international organizations such as the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, causing changes to policies and frameworks to reflect changing reserve compositions. Although a full-scale gold standard is unlikely in the near future due to logistical and economic challenges, China's substantial gold reserves could spark discussions about restructuring the global financial system, including discussions about adopting commodity-linked currencies or going back to a gold-backed currency system. Major economies like China strategically hold gold, which stabilizes global currencies and lessens their susceptibility to inflation. China's gold holdings. China's gold reserves provide significant leverage in international negotiations and strategic alliances, enhancing its influence in global affairs. Gold can act as a tool in economic diplomacy, providing stable assets in exchange for political support or strategic cooperation. China's reserve diversification affects global trade agreements, potentially leading to clauses that allow for settlement in multiple currencies or include gold as a settlement asset. This reflects the broader shift towards reserve diversification and can influence tariff structures and trade balance management. China's gold accumulation strategy is set to continue shaping its economic and geopolitical landscape, influenced by projected gold accumulation trends, potential policy changes, technological advancements, global economic and political scenarios, and sustainability considerations. It is expected that China's annual gold purchases will remain high, potentially exceeding 600 metric tons by 2025, with specific targets set for gold reserves within its foreign holdings over the next decade. Policy adjustments may include more flexible reserve management practices, increased transparency regarding gold reserves and purchasing strategies, and domestic policies incentivizing gold mining and recycling. Technological advancements in mining and urban mining capabilities will influence China's ability to acquire and manage gold reserves sustainably. Innovations in mining technologies can improve extraction efficiency and reduce environmental impacts, while blockchain technology can enhance transparency and security in transactions. Sustainability and environmental considerations are becoming increasingly important, with stricter regulations and corporate social responsibility initiatives driving greener and more sustainable gold mining practices. That is all for this video. We truly appreciate you watching it, and if our content inspired you or spoke to you, please think about showing your support by liking it and subscribing to stay in touch with our community. Your support means a lot to us. You can also watch another video from our channel which is currently playing.